Amen. Okay, into Psalm 23. And Andrew gave a pretty good introduction to my sermon today through Isaiah. Thank you for that. Right, there is one God that we serve and have known, the creator of our universe. But throughout history, our human imagination and our brokenness have created lots of little gods, right? Lots of idols. Come with me to Mount Olympus, ancient Greece, the dwelling place of the pantheon of gods that ruled the earth, the heavens and the underworld. A crazy, dysfunctional family of superhuman mystical beings that explained all the things that humans could not explain, that controlled all the things that human could not control, that gave meaning to a world for many people. Both the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans looked to Mount Olympus, the highest peak in Greece, for their divine guidance for at least 1,000 years, from the 9th century BC all the way to the 4th century BC. It's still weird how those numbers go backwards as we count down. You might be familiar with this guy. His name is Zeus, right? Or in the Roman world, his name was Jupiter. Zeus was the king of the gods and the god of the sky, the weather, law and order, destiny and fate. He was depicted as a regal, mature man with a sturdy figure, and a dark beard. And his attributes, or the things he held, were a lightning bolt, a royal scepter, and an eagle. And his image appeared all through the ancient world. How about this one? Poseidon in Greek. In Roman, yes, Neptune, god of the sea. Poseidon is described as gathering the clouds and calling forth storms, but at the same time had it in his power to occasionally grant a successful voyage and save those who are in danger, and all other marine divinities were under his rule. As the sea surrounds and holds the earth, he himself described as the god who holds the earth. There were goddesses too on Mount Olympus. This is Artemis, and she was portrayed like this, the goddess of hunting. She was the daughter of Zeus, the wilderness. She was the daughter of the wilderness and wild animals. She was also goddess of childbirth and the protectors of the girl children. She was also the bringer of disease and death upon the girl children, which is confusing to me. These stories of these gods and how they interacted with each other and humans were unlikely ones, fantastical and intriguing. Zeus was most fond of his daughter, much more than his sons, but used her to punish his own family and bring vengeance on his enemies. Artemis's mother, Hera, was no better, using Artemis's emerging powers to change people into animals who she would then kill. Myths and stories and experience that formed a picture that millions of ancient Greeks and Romans formed their lives and culture and societies around. Stories told over centuries, stories of the gods being fickle and incestuous, cunning, inconsistent and murderous, prone to any whim and most often totally intolerant of humanity unless they wanted something for themselves. These books are still being written, actually, and these stories of ancient gods continue to influence our language, art, literature, culture, and Western civilization. Our planets are named after these gods. Much of our language and words and vocabulary come from these stories. Psalm 23, Door of Hope, is the picture of our God. As we look at this image and the painting and artwork at the back of the auditorium, Psalm 23 influences our thinking and our culture and our families and our hearts towards our God. And he is the Good Shepherd. And that's what we're going to be exploring today. A God that is not described in terms of a conquering power or the weapon he held in his hand, but as a carer of sheep. Not a shepherd because sheep are dumb and useless and hopeless, but because sheep are prized and valued and loved by the Good Shepherd. A God that leads us into pastures and still waters. A God that brings our souls back to his goodness. A shepherd who leads his people. A shepherd who comforts and guides and protects. Are you seeing the contrast? Are you seeing the contrast? A shepherd who provides despite opposition and circumstance. A merciful God housing his people in his care forever. This is a counter-cultural God. Psalm 23 summarizes the character and person of the Good Shepherd, who is so countercultural to these gods and mythical beings of the ancient world and present at the time when David wrote the psalm. They sounded a little bit different. Meet Baal, the Canaanite gods of storms and fertility. The children of Israel had been seeing Baals since they left Egypt and encountered the peoples beyond. He first shows up in Numbers chapter 25, and the Lord warned them against worshipping these idols. There were other gods and idols that attracted the attention of the children of Israel. Ashtoreth and Moloch were their names. To have these gods bring them what they wanted, the worshippers had to give very little, like pour out some wine on the earth or just put some wheat in front of an altar. And they received the promise of a bountiful crops or good weather or fertility. And the priests and prophets of these gods demanded ever-increasing gifts, ever-increasing sacrifices until they were giving their own children. And the response from these idols? Fickle, unpredictable, and inconsistent. Israel struggled through the enticement of these false gods and idols in a constant cycle of abandoning their God and then returning broken. You can read the account in 1 Kings chapter 18 of King Ahab and his Baals and priests and Elijah demonstrating the God that he served. It's a great recount. You know, another psalm, Psalm 115, summarizes the reality of these created gods and idols. In verse 4, it says, their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths but do not speak. They have eyes but do not see. They have ears but do not hear, and noses but do not smell. They have hands and feet but do not walk. They make no sound in their throats. Those who make them are like them, so are all who trust in them. Is there also evil at work in these created gods and idols? Yes. Yes, there is. And Ben, next week, as he brings us next week's message, will focus on this verse from Psalm 23. I will fear no evil. But we have a choice, door of hope. Idols of human minds and hands, or the Good Shepherd. Ben reminded us last week that this opening line of Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd and I lack nothing, is the truth that starts this psalm. In the Good Shepherd, we see God's character towards us, his sheep. And we see the promises he has for us. He is a dependable Good Shepherd. That's the first one. Leading us into places where we are nourished and fed and taken care of. He was the dependable shepherd of the children of Israel all through their journeys of the Old Testament. He provided water from rocks and food from heaven, instruction and direction when they needed it, which was all the time. He provided a spokesperson so they could hear with their own ears what God was saying. And generation after generation experienced a dependable God. How has God been dependable Good Shepherd to you in your journey with him? Secondly, he is a safe good shepherd. Even though I walk through the valley, the darkest valley, I fear no evil. Psalm 23 says, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. God's character as a loving father is the very definition of being safe. The absence of fear because of his presence with us, nudging us back into his presence, into his safety, stopping us short of danger and correcting our steps. How has God been a safe good shepherd for you? How has he prevented danger and fear? Thirdly, he is a predictable good shepherd. Countercultural, right? For all of our generations, because the gods we create and the idols we create are unpredictable. We never ever know where we stand. But God tells the truth and he doesn't make us guess. When the children of Israel were in the desert, God gave them the gift of the 10 Commandments. He didn't keep them guessing. There they are, never sure whether they were on the right track, but literally put it in stone, right? He wrote it in stone so it would stay and people would know. We were so confident in his consistency, never changing. Psalm 102 says, but you, God, remain the same and your years will never end. Your word, Lord, is eternal. It stands firm in the heavens, says Psalm 119. He wrote them in stone so we would know who he is and what he requires or wants for us, his children. You know, Jesus was born into a world filled with fickle, inconsistent idols too. The Roman idols were worshipped by the Jewish oppressors. Idols were everywhere. In temples and in altars, the mountains were full of these created idols of stone and wood. Leaders of the time were worshipped as gods. The Roman emperors had to be bowed down to. They led with power and might and control and wealth. And Jesus came and in a radically countercultural announcement called himself the Good Shepherd. In John 10:11, he says this. He says, I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd who what? Power and control? No, who lays down his life for the sheep, these gentle, lowly creatures. Verse 12 says, the hired hand who is not the shepherd, does not own the sheep, sees a wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my own and they know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father. This good shepherd of Psalm 23, right, knows Jesus, is within and present and available. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold, and I must bring them also. And they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock and one shepherd. This is not a fickle God who says, yes, I see you and I will ignore you. This is not a God that dwells on a single mountain in Greece. This is a God that welcomes everyone. In verse 17, it says, for this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord, the shepherd that chooses to give everything for the sheep he loves. I have other sheep, I have the power to lay it down. I have the power to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father. Jesus is the fulfillment of Psalm 23, Door of Hope. He is the good shepherd. He is the fullness of God and his character and his power, dependable and safe and predictable. Hebrews 13:8 says about Jesus what the Psalms said about God. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if Jesus is the good shepherd, then Psalm 23 is our reality in Christ. Right? It's no longer the psalm of the Old Testament. It comes forward to us, and this walking with the good shepherd is our reality when we follow Jesus. Gods were portrayed to us as mighty warriors of the ocean with a trident in their hand. But who couldn't calm a storm? Jesus, our good shepherd, calmed it with just a word. And he walks with us in the same calmness. Idols seemingly powerful but fully corrupt. Jesus full of compassion and love. And he walks with us through whatever circumstances we find ourselves in, with compassion and love. Jesus, the good shepherd who sees us, heals us, transforms us to be more like him. Our walking with Jesus restores us to his likeness, into the reality of Psalm 23. How are you walking with him today, Door of Hope? Are you accepting the journey to come follow me? Right? Because that's the invitation our good shepherd gave. Not come and bow down, not come and sacrifice like they did on the ancient mountains. Come follow me. Are you accepting this invitation to journey with him in a life without lack? This promise that Psalm 23 gives us, that we have everything we need. Do you know his voice today? Do you know his voice? The invitation today is to say yes to the good shepherd and to walk in the reality of Psalm 23. Not a perfect walk, right? And Psalm 23 says that the good shepherd is with us in the good pastures and still waters. He's with us in the darkest valleys, which means as we walk, we're with him. He's constantly beside us. I want to encourage you this morning, as I've already encouraged someone. If you're walking with Jesus and you're finding it hard to pray, continue walking. He is with you. He's hearing your heart. If you find that you don't have words to pray in this season of 40 days of prayer, that's okay. Keep walking with him because he walks with you. Read his word. Read his word. The invitation is to say no to the pretend gods and idols that still capture our attention, with the small offerings we make to them that demand more and more of us. Humans haven't really changed much. The Garden of Eden, right? Then into the desert. In Jesus' time and in 2025. And just like here, an hour of scrolling, another subscription here and there, our focus taken away from Jesus, our focus drawn to other things. The invitation is to say no to that and yes to the Good Shepherd. If you don't hear his voice, ask him to speak. Ask him to speak. He's spoken to me this morning when Andrew got up and shared those verses from Isaiah, which I didn't know he was going to share, that there is only one God. And God reminded me, yep, these are my words for you. He speaks. If you can't hear his voice, ask him. Ask him. We're going to finish this part of our service today by listening to Psalm 23, a time of reflection. And I want to ask you to do this both in the room and online, as you see the words on the screen, or if you'd like to close your eyes and listen to the beautiful voice of Kyron Fogarty, who's going to come up and read it for us. What characteristics of God stand out for you? What captures your attention when you hear the words of Psalm 23 spoken? Because this is your God, and he wants to speak. And I have a sense today that there's a characteristic that he wants to talk to you about. And he wants to say to you, I am this God for you today. I am the God. Jesus is the good shepherd for you today because of this thing. So Kyron, would you come up and share this psalm with us again? What characteristics of God stand out for you?
The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still, quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.